Good weekend, everyone. I'm gogginsing myself to do this video today because I was on a really great mental flow at the end of my work day, which means this is about to be sleep time for me. But my brain's starting to fade now. But you know, like as Goggins would say, or anyone else, like you got to break stuff down and be willing to just like take the first little step into the thing you want to do. It's like stepping in the stream to go swimming. Like your toes are in there, like keep going, you're in there now, like you're already here, so let's make it happen. So there's a couple of different things I've been thinking about in my interesting when you work very solitary, and I don't know how everybody else's brains work. I have a very busy brain. If you are familiar with Dr. Amen, Dr. Daniel Amen, who has Amen clinics, and he studies people's brain scans. He's subtyped people's brains into a bunch of different types, and I'd have to go look again. I've posted it before. I've taken his online brain test, and I think I'm like brain test type 11, which is like very overactive brain. I think it's very overactive frontal lobe. I'd have to go look again. I'll have to repost it on my page. But yeah, my brain never shuts up. It's great. So working a lot by myself at night, even while I'm using my hands, my brain's constantly like go, 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 go. And this is one thing I've said about, for me, that's been really great for emotional regulation with ambient ASMRs. It gives my brain something to focus on to stop these like 6 different streams of like consciousness, memories, stimulation from coming into my brain at all times. I don't know if this Instagram will repost again, but the Facebook has been, and when I get time, have been downloading the Facebook stream and then moving that over to YouTube. And I like YouTube because if you have YouTube Premium, you can leave the window up on top of other apps on your phone, or you could stream it to your TV. You can turn off your phone and keep the video running in the background and still have the audio running. So like if you're in your car, you don't need to be looking at your phone because you're driving, but you can listen to the person talking while you're in the car connected to your Bluetooth and just keep it running, which is really nice because with Facebook, as far as I know with Facebook, you can't do that with the videos. Facebook is kind of like it's either open or closed. If you go to something else, you're not streaming the video anymore. So we'll see what happens this time, because last time I made my last video, it didn't repost to Instagram, and I was like, did I change a setting? Did I have an update and something happened? I don't know. So yeah, working on the night shift, busy brain. Sometimes drowning that out if I'm listening to music, or if I'm having a moment where I need to focus or calm down in a different way, listen to some ambient ASMR. I had something happen the other night where I got kind of stressed out, and I don't even remember what it was at this point, but I remember being like, I gotta put something on, and I think I put on like some rain sounds or something, and it just really helped me to calm down, because for me, as a person with CPTSD, and also as the main thing that I wanted to talk about in this video, being a neurodivergent person, I'm realizing more and more now, even outside of my CPTSD, neurodivergent traits that I had that I never really acknowledged or attributed to being neurodivergent. And it's not just me like claiming that these are neurodivergent traits, because I see other influencers who are neurodivergent, some in different ways. Some people are autistic, and I've never been evaluated for autism, but I'm definitely diagnosed gifted. I'll tell y'all too, and I'm going to continue to work to fix my language. First of all, in my last video, and I don't know what I just said, autistic people. Autism is not something that you get. It's a different brain type. It's a variation in the way that your brain works, your neurology works. So a lot of people don't like when you use the language person with autism. It's not something you get, it's not something that goes away. It is the way your brain is. You are autistic. So I apologize if in my other videos, or if I again say with autism, that it's not my intention. I'm going to continue to correct myself, because I would never, maybe I would, and it's very individual, but I don't usually call myself a person with giftedness. Like, I'm diagnosed gifted. It just means that my brain it works different than other people's brains do. And for me, that means very overactive. There was an interesting video that I saw in the last week, a snippet on Instagram, and the creator it's called Method Creative on Instagram, and she's doing videos about neurodivergence, and she made a video that was about it was about the similarities in thinking between people who are diagnosed ADHD and people who are diagnosed gifted. So she was explaining how ADHD conversations can really jump around, and it's just about the focus of the attention changing for the person, but the conversation kind of always sort of comes back around again to the original point at some point. And I commented to someone about this today because we were having a conversation. I'm sure we're both neurodivergent, as many people I work with, but to other people, just like the game of telephone, and Method Creative is the person who cited this to the study of the game of telephone between neurodivergent people only group, the game of telephone between neurotypical people only groups, and then the issue with the game of telephone that included both neurotypes. So I definitely have conversations with people, my friends who are neurodiverse, and I can tell when people are more like I would assume neurotypical, that just don't, they're like, what are you talking about? Even to the point that sometimes people think that me and my friends are arguing, and it's like, we're actually discussing, sorry, I don't have this Instagram camera on a phone, and I really need to, or this Instagram camera on a stand, and I really need to find a place that I like it that'll stay. So yeah, people think we're arguing sometimes, and the tone between neurodiverse people is very different, I find, than neurotypical people, and it can be really misinterpreted. It's very direct, and there's not necessarily ego behind it. Not necessarily, there can be, but you know, I can just blankly ask a person a question or say a statement, and it's like, to me, I'm just stating a fact, but to some people that are neurotypical, it's like you're insulting them indirectly, and that's not the intention. So sometimes when I have debates or conversations with my friends who are neurodiverse, people are just like, something's going down. It's like, nothing's going down. It's a healthy, friendly, neurodivergent discussion. So, and often, in my case, to be honest, I do know some people who are diagnosed gifted. I'm sure there are people that may be gifted that don't know, but I think a lot of times when it's intellectually gifted, these days, many people it's caught in school, because there's an intelligence quotient and IQ cutoff. So normally, giftedness is considered above, like, I think it's 130 or above. And then genius, I believe, is in the 150 to 160 range. Don't quote me on that. You'd have to look it up. And I believe that scale varies too, depending on the type of test. And it's more about the percentage of the population of intelligence quotient, that where the general population fits. So this is an interesting thing in neurodivergence and how this is a scale, and it's kind of about being on the outsides of this scale. Like, if you say the 20% of people that are on this high extreme of the scale, the 20% of people who are on this low extreme of the scale, then the neurotypical is considered what's in the middle, like the middle 60%. And this is part of my conversation that I want to have here too, of what's been going on in my head. as I learn about neurodivergence and recognize it and recognize people in my life who are neurodivergent, what's up? One of my friends on right now. That is Elise. I don't know if I mentioned that to y'all because my one profile is under Vegan Atheist Witch, but my name's Elise. I should say that more often. Yeah. So learning more, recognizing people who may or may not be neurotypical, neurodiverse in my life. It's interesting, and I have a lot of theories that I wouldn't say are necessarily 100% science-based. You know, I pick up little snippets of information that I hear here and there from people. Some of it, there are scientific studies behind this. I don't have them written down specifically, and I wish I could remember the specific instances where I heard them. But I think someone had mentioned this too. I think it was the Instagram and Facebook content creator Rebecca Faith Cruz, who is autistic. She mentioned kind of this attitude of the problem with the terms like high functioning and low functioning autism, and how people think of one as lesser, or one is, you know, they're different. And also this idea that some people who are neurodivergent have these theories that like somehow they think that it's some superior development or evolution, and somehow that makes them better than everybody else. I think that's very flawed and very oddly egotistical for like neurodiverse people, who I generally tend to think of as, personally myself, as like less egotistical, but we still have ego. It's just different. It's not social ego in the same degree of the game that like neurotypicals engage in. I have to like expand more on that at some point. But it's I feel like there's many of these groups in history that get this idea that somehow they're better than everybody else, and that's just ridiculous. We're all different. We all have different strengths. We all have different weaknesses. Some people who have more challenges in some areas that, say for autism, some people who are nonverbal they're savants in other regards. So you can't discount, the brain is like very fluid of, you know, my understanding and my research and what I'm listening to people. So when one area kind of struggles a little more, it's not to say that it's impossible to do a task or somehow completely lesser. It's just like another area of the brain seems to kind of compensate in the other direction and build a strength in the other direction. So I think that like neurotypical people do have strengths that benefit them, whereas neurodiverse people have different types of strengths. And I heard there was a study done on fish. I probably mentioned this before, and I wish I could remember where I heard it. It was one of these three people. It was either Andrew Huberman, who's a neuroscientist. I think it was him, but I might be wrong. If it wasn't him, it was Dr. Daniel Amen or Dr. Russell Barkley, who is an ADHD specialist. And Dr. Amen and I think Dr. Barkley both deal a little bit with addiction, because ADHD, neurodivergence, and addiction, there's a lot of overlap there, because there's a lot of people trying to self-medicate to deal with feeling different in the world, or their feelings that are not being accepted. So I think we have to, this is where we have to live more authentically and make this a more normalized thing. It's hard because it's when you're taught your whole life not to behave a certain way, and that you're weird and that you're different, like we hide it, and then it's not normalized. Now it's weird. But I think it's actually a lot more common if we're, I don't know the technical range for what they consider neurodivergent, let's say just in the area of IQ specifically, maybe it's not 20/20 and another 60 in the middle. Maybe it's 15/15 and then the middle ground. I don't know specifically. But you know, my train of thought is going real fast right now. So let me go backtrack a little bit in this conversation. So when I was talking about method creative, ADHD thinking, and gifted thinking, she mentions in her video that there is similarity. ADHD thinking is very jumping from one thing to another, but often coming back to the topic somehow through the conversation. Like a ADHD thinker often will say like, oh, like, I'm talking about this thing, then it makes me think of this other thing that I remember, and then it shoots off. And I don't think that it's necessarily, though I'm not diagnosed ADHD, my understanding is like, it's like lighting. When I visualize this, I think of lighting candles. You know, an idea sparks up, then another candle lights up next to it, then another one, then another one, then another one. You know, like, and eventually it's all going to come back around to the same idea. With gifted thinkers, another person that I've been following is on Instagram is Autistic Thrifter. And she had brought up the point of Gestalt thinking, which I had never heard this term before. And when she started talking about it, and when I looked it up, I was like, this makes so much sense to me. So Gestalt thinking, to my understanding, is like the idea of like big picture thinking. And a lot of people who are on the spectrum, especially gifted people and some autistic people, think this way of like, they want to know what the big picture is before they get down to the details. And I had, as I've mentioned before, and as I had explained it to my therapist, it's very interesting because even when Method Creative was talking about, and sorry, I don't know her name technically, like that's just the name of her channel, I'll have to go back and look again. When she's talking about gifted thinking, she explains it as like a web. And it's wild because that's how I visualize my thinking. So it's very affirming that another person would explain it that way, because that's the way I see it. Sorry, because I'm tired if I sound a little shaky in my voice. It's tiredness. I've been very physically active over the last few days, more than normal, and like, you know, if y'all forgot, I made a post about this, but everyone wants to complain about winter and snow, but the pollen is coming for y'all. Go see your doctor if you have a prescription that you normally take for this, or a nasal spray, or if you need to get your inhaler. As many of us on the spectrum tend to have a lot of allergies, like, refill that stuff, because a lot of people are going to think that they're sick, and it's just your allergies. You may be sick. There's stuff going on around right now, too. Like, my kid is sick. But inhalers are important for us people with asthma. Don't forget yours. So yeah, like the big picture thinking. So there's similarity in the idea that ADHD and giftedness thinking aren't linear. And I think that we are able to kind of connect with each other in that way and hold a conversation that can go in a lot of different places, but then like bring it back around. So this study about the fish, where they studied a specific type of fish, they noticed that in the types of fish, I think I mentioned this on another live before, but I'm going to say it again because it's going back into this conversation, that certain subsets of fish kind of create that center of the school, which these are the fish that in humans we would look at as the more neurotypical, like they kind of stick with the pack, they're more social, they don't deviate, they want to kind of stay together, they're more social. Then you have the fish that are thought of as more neurodivergent. They're more adventure seeking. They're more apt to go away from the crowd. And these fish, like I said, they're more adventurous. They're more stimulated by things that the other fish are going to ignore. So we could say these are like our ADHD or gifted, autistic, neurodivergent fish. Without these fish, the neurotypical fish will just stay in a big ball of a school and never go anywhere. They're not motivated to leave their safety. But if they just stay in that ball and they never go anywhere, they're going to eat up their whole food source and they're going to die. So the value is there's safety in that social connection and that group, you know, as a group. but also there is value in the neurodivergent type of fish that goes off and, oh look, here's a new food source, oh here's a new place that we can all hang out and be safe. You know, you need both in a society. So I've said this before, but like, I don't think that it's healthy as a society for us to make it us against them. Like, oh, neurodivergents are the bad ones, they're the weird ones, or neurotypicals are the bad ones. There's benefits to both. We have to recognize it, and we have to learn to work together. So, some thoughts I had about this, like I said when I started this video, I'm a little bit tired, just a little bit over the edge where I'm not as focused as I could be. But another video I watched this week with the content creator Dopamine Dysfunctional, like I said, in the video, it cracked me up because it was that like thing he's talking about where people say to you like, oh, don't worry, like you're doing a project, take your time. And it's like, that's the worst thing for a person with, you know, that burns through dopamine fast. Like, you telling someone that they have lots of time to do something and they don't have like a push to do it, they're not gonna do it. Like, they're just gonna dilly-dally and whatever, and like, so it's interesting. Sometimes I find when I'm tired, I have the most cohesive thought. When I don't dip below a certain, you know, fatigue level, which I'm getting there, but it's an interesting thought when you think about a lot of people with ADHD, people like me that are very busy-minded, when it comes to not just getting things done, but like, you know, going to school, writing papers, the challenge of like, oh, you have 2 weeks to write this paper, and then I'm gonna wait until the last night and like bang it out in 10 hours so that I can create the most amount of stress and dopamine in my brain to focus on this and not listen to anything else that's going on in my life. Like, push it all away. Like, let's just focus on one thing. I don't think that's always necessarily healthy, but sometimes that's when people do their best work. And I watched another podcast this week that I posted, and this podcast was, I had to write notes on this so that I can make sure that I could use all the correct names this week. So Diary of CEO just put out a podcast with Dr. K. So Dr. Kanogia, I think I just said it right, the talk was about addiction and lack of connectedness in society. Pretty much everything I've been watching lately when it comes to mental health, addiction, anybody that's working on themselves is like, you basically have to find time to slow down and stop and sit in your thoughts. Even David Goggins said the same thing. Like, you have to face yourself. You have to face your demons. You have to look at the ugliness of yourself. You have to acknowledge it. This is why I'm not a fan of toxic positivity. Toxic positivity is invalidating to your own feelings. It doesn't acknowledge that there might be an angry side of you, a sad side that's trying to tell you something. You can't just bury that and keep pushing it down. And this is what, you know, Dr. K was talking about in this interview with, I forget the host name of Diary of CEO, sorry. But, you know, they're having this discussion about lack of connection in society, lack of connection to ourselves because we keep ourselves so busy with addictions, with overworking, with, you know, going to school, just keeping ourselves so busy that we never take the time to sit with our thoughts. And I don't know if I mentioned this in another live before. It was Dr. Amen, I believe, that said this, that there was a study that they did on people where they asked them, they give them two options. They're like, you can sit in a room for 15 minutes, no music, just silence, or you can literally electric shock yourself. And the numbers, no, I did not sleep yet. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I'm dipping below the line of like, I'm about to get tired. But I challenged myself to get on this video and talk about what I was thinking about today, or I was like, I'm not going to do it this week. It's just not going to happen because I got too much going on. interrupted my thought. Now I have to get back to where I was. Circle back around. So yeah, getting back to getting in touch with yourself and dealing with your stuff. You know, we all keep so busy, we don't self-evaluate, and and with technology we've lost our connection to other people. So a very interesting thing that Dr. K said in this interview, though, they were talking about meditation, and what he was saying, I've personally never been really great at trying to meditate much. Not that I have particularly, like, I've done yoga, more of like the more chill kinds of yoga, and not like the power yoga stuff where you're trying to get into a certain state. What I liked about the interview with Dr. K that I had not heard anybody else say is that there's multiple types of meditative practices and strategies, and that they don't all work for everybody, which 100% makes sense, because if you think about the variation of people's brains, as Dr. Amen has studied, our brains are so diverse. This is where neurodiversity comes from. The same thing doesn't work for everybody. It's like supplements. There's not one magic pill that works for everybody. So the interesting thing he was saying that he tells his people with ADHD or very busy minds to try is to essentially exhaust your mind. Like, mentally run your mind until it gets so tired, not too tired, but tired enough that it quiets down. And then you can get into a meditative, contemplative state. But I think it's interesting. I think that this is my theory, but I think that it could be possible that, like, neurodivergence could be an adaptation that came into society, say, when it comes to, as they've said, people who stay up late that are neurodivergent. This is like a stereotype about people that are neurodivergent, that we tend to stay up late. Is it because there's a potential link between neurodivergence and trauma and how that changes the brain? Who's to say? Maybe sometimes the safe time in life is nighttime, or is it the other side of the coin too, where maybe as humans, someone had to stay up at night. You know, we didn't always have a safe place 24 hours. We had predators, like somebody had to stay up and watch the fire, make sure nobody's stealing our stuff, make sure there's no animals out here trying to eat us or off us, you know. And I had this thought tonight because one of the great things working on night shift, other than being able to control the music speakers in the store and all the sound, I can turn all the lights off. And this is what I've been figuring out for me in unmasking and acknowledging my neurodivergence. As I've said, it's never been a question. It's the weirdest thing. It's like, I don't know how to make an analogy about this, but it's like someone telling you you're different, but not how that impacts you, you know? It's like we're, oh God, I wish I could think of the right analogy. It's just being a whole different kind of like beast. And like, I want to say, like, people have told me my whole life that I'm too sensitive. And this came up today when I'm thinking about turning down lights, and how for people on the spectrum, many people, and me included, this helps us to calm down when we're overstimulated. So I don't know if I've ever mentioned this on a live before, but one of my things, it could also be CPTSD related, but I'm really, really starting to think that as I'm getting more in touch with my own body, that this is a neurodivergence thing for me. If I'm overstimulated, in an ideal situation, if I can, I want to escape the situation physically, whatever room it's in. I want to go to a quiet room, so an office, you know, where I can close the door, a conference room if I'm at work, the bathroom if I'm somewhere. Turn the lights off. No sounds. No nothing coming in at me, and just sit there and breathe and relax. And it's like, I know some people are very big on like pressure, some neurodivergence people, but to me, the feeling of like the lights going down and all of the extra sensory information going away is like a almost like a hug. Like, it's in a weird way. It's like a very, everything just stops. So, but the interesting thing to me about that is if neurodivergent people somehow in this theory, like, we evolved to be people, that's not to sound vampiric, but like people of the night, like maybe there's an evolutionary, you know, like idea to this, that like maybe other than the lack of sensory input, like I've heard many people say that they don't, you know, we don't like bright lights. Maybe that's an adaptation over time, evolutionarily. So that's one of the things that I've noticed lately about myself that a lot of people say about being neurodivergent. Another thing that I've noticed, and I always would explain this to people, but I don't know why I thought it was like not that big of a thing, but I've always been really sensitive to smells. And to the point, I've said it before, but I never quite connected it, that like if I go out in public to a conventional grocery store, I have a very difficult time walking down the aisle with all the cleaning products. If someone's doing laundry near my house, my street, when I had neighbors and they were running their laundry, the scent, if they're using like a scented detergent, if they're using like fabric softener sheets, it makes me want to throw up. Like, it is so intensely overwhelming. And I noticed this recently. A situation came up where what do I want to say, like room aromatherapy kind of stuff was being used in an environment. And I can't have this stuff in my house. I don't know how many of y'all are this way, if you're on this somewhere on the spectrum, but like these room, like air freshener things, the plugins that you put in the wall. I mean, I know that they are technically toxic in some of their ingredients, but also just the intensity of the smell is so nauseating. It's given me headaches, like those hot plugins. I don't want to name names and like make any companies angry, but you know what I'm talking about. The hot oil plug-in things. I cannot be in someone's house if they're in there. I'm going to get like basically like a migraine. And with my studies where I've been learning about epigenetics, it's very interesting. I wouldn't say everyone that's neurodivergent is going to have MTHFR mutations, but there's a higher correlation specifically with autism that they've seen. Now, I don't know if they've studied this in giftedness, because a lot of people don't think of giftedness as a challenging problem. They think we're all just fine and we don't have any issues, which is a fallacy. But it's definitely been studied that autistic people have higher incidence of MTHFR genetic mutations. And MTHFR is a gene that helps us to metabolize folate and is involved in our detoxification system. So it would make sense that we would be more chemically sensitive. Now, I don't know if that translates to our senses being stronger, our sense of smell specifically, but I definitely have heard other people say that they know people who have partners who can't handle anything scented in their house, on people's bodies. Like, and I used to think that I was being too sensitive about it, but I think I'm just recognizing that my brain's just different. I really don't think that other people smell these things as intensely as I do. And as I explained in other videos, I kind of have those sensations too with the hyperphantasia, where it's like, I basically, like if I think of the beach, like I almost feel like I could like smell the waves, smell the beach, smell the sand, like there's, and it's so frustrating because like I can't verbalize it. Like, I wish I could verbalize it to people, but I can't. That's the interesting thing with a gifted big picture gestalt thinking is like, it's just so hard to verbalize. And I was explaining to my friend today about gifted thinking and the pattern recognition and skipping steps and trying to explain to other people when you skip steps, which I'm getting better at, but like it can be frustrating sometimes to have to learn to communicate with people in another way because they don't see it the way that you do. And that doesn't make them any, like, me better than them. That just means they're probably good at way better at something than I am in another area. So the chemical sensitivity, the smells, sounds. So my one friend that I work with, we had like a heater that was above one of the desks at the back of the store where we work. And it was funny because, you know, we work with like, I don't know, 50 people, probably, something like this. And like out of all the people that were in the store, there were only a couple of us that were like, do y'all hear that? Like, what is that noise? You know, and we're asking the other people who don't seem to be as on the spectrum as we are, and they're like, I don't hear a noise. And I'm like, I definitely hear a noise. And there were at least two of us that were like, we hear this noise. And it's funny because it progressively over the months got worse until eventually everyone heard it. So that's like a validating thing that like we're not imagining sounds that are not there. Someone else had mentioned to me today about how someone was using something in their house, like they were, I don't want to say clicking something, but they were moving something and the sound was like driving this person crazy. And the other person is like, I don't understand what you're saying. So the other person goes in the other room and they're like, I can hear you pushing it on and off and on and off. And, you know, the other person is amazed because like they don't have that same level of intensity in their hearing. So it's a weird thing to get in touch with your body, to validate yourself, and to become aware that your neurodivergent traits are not just you being weird, or like they're actual things. These are actual things that people are experiencing. The light sensitivity. I mentioned this to my my eye doctor, and yes, I have photosensitivity issues, but you know, it's like I'll mention stuff and he's like, oh, everyone's like that, and I'm like, no, everyone's not like me. And I know because when I went to phototherapy and found out about my photosensitivity, you could see it like on the areas where they were giving me the photosensitivity treatment on my hands. So I'm very like interested to see how neuroscience and epigenetics and all these different studies are going to start connecting and basically just like validating the experiences of neurodivergent people. And instead of us all trying to fit into a neurotypical box and to mask, like just society kind of accommodating itself to us a little more. And I think it's going to take time because we came out of these generations of like the boomers and all these other like becoming American generations that wanted to just become this homogenous ideal of something, but that's not how people are. So yeah, those are my thoughts lately. Like, I know I had more stuff that I wanted to talk about in that regard, but I guess I would just say that was like my thoughts today. That idea that like we're being too sensitive, I don't think we should put ourselves down. I think we can validate that like, yeah, I'm hearing something that someone else is not hearing. Yeah, I'm feeling something that everybody else is not feeling, or this thing is bothering me, this smell. We have to figure out, as I've said before, how much do we expect everybody else to accommodate us versus how much do we have to learn to try to integrate. And sometimes that may be that For example, like acknowledging that certain things bother you, like, and dysregulate you. Maybe if you're in a job and you can afford to switch into a different position doing something different, maybe that's the answer for you. You know, like that whole idea that we're on this like just path that just starts down here and continues in this linear line of like go 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 to the top, like it's not for everybody, and everybody's not happy doing that. And you can't always know right away what is the right thing for you until you try a lot of things. And I know it's hard for some of us who are neurodivergent to get out of our safe habits. A perfect example of this for me today was I ate something brand new that I've never eaten before. I don't have it with me. I wish I would have saved the box now. But it's this brand that makes vegan, gluten-free, frozen, like they make sushi bowls and they make sushi rolls. You guys have probably seen these in the stores. I'll post them later when I look them up and figure out what the name of them was. But I was really shocked because y'all know that I make my own sushi bowls because it's easy, because I don't want to sit around hand rolling sushi. I could do it, but I have a 5-year-old, like, and I have 2 dogs. I'm not going to sit around and I don't have the luxury of sitting around hand rolling sushi. So I know exactly how I like my sushi bowls, and every time I try something new, I'm like very skeptical. But I tried this product today and I was surprised. Like, my expectation was low and it was actually not bad. I would buy it again if I was out somewhere in public and needed to find something to eat, if I didn't have options. Would I buy it over what I make? No. But this is another thing that I've realized with me. One of my traits of neurodivergence that a lot of other people talk about is like the safe food. Like, if I'm stressed out, if I'm tired, especially with being vegan and gluten-free, I know like 5 things that I like. I like them to be made exactly the same way. I like to know what to expect. I don't want to deviate. So that idea of like safe foods, it's nice to help us to emotionally regulate ourselves when we're going through stress, but it's also good to challenge ourselves to try new things, because sometimes you throw something new into the mix and you're like, this is great. Why haven't I done this yet? So you have to get out of your comfort zone sometimes, just enough to like little baby steps in your life to kind of change things and getting it going in another direction. And then the last point I'll say is I've realized on neurodivergence and being too sensitive is that, like, I had talked to my therapist about this a long time ago, but when I was in school, grade school, as a child, when I was young, yeah, I had a lot of family things going on, but there was a point in time where when the first few years that I started school, when we would have lunchtime, I would get sick every single lunchtime, like physically ill feeling. And I don't know if anybody else gets this. This was a joke in my family about me, that whenever the holidays would come up and I'd get to see family, I would get very like worked up and get sick. It's a weird thing. So they'd be like, holiday-itis, you have holiday-itis. And then I would be fine. There's like no explanation for it other than that I was hyping myself up. So that's kind of a little different, but the whole thing about like sitting in the lunchroom when I was a kid was, I realize now as an adult, and I can reflect on it from outside with a clearer mind, it was overstimulating. You're in a classroom full of kids. I mean, what do you have, like 100, 200 plus kids sitting in a lunchroom talking, all the noises, all the smells of all the foods, the lights. A lot of like lighting in schools is not exactly like dim. And there may have been some food sensitivities, but I really think it was stress. And I don't know if I had mentioned this in a live before, but I had made some comments and written a little bit about it before, but I was diagnosed with social anxiety disorder as a teenager. And I think because I was afraid to talk about my experience as a person and what was going on with my family, that a lot of stuff went undiagnosed or incorrectly diagnosed. So I remember telling them when they diagnosed me with this social anxiety, like, I'm like, I'll go somewhere in public. Say if I don't really like sports very much, probably because sports are loud. You sit in rooms full of people. There's many, many people doing many things at once. Say you're watching basketball. It's loud. There's lots of things to look at. There's lots of sounds going on. There's lots of people talking. There's drinking. There's yelling. It's not an environment that I love. So I guess maybe that's one reason I don't like sports. But that's kind of how I would feel if I would go to a football game, even as an adult, or as a teenager. Like, I remember telling them before they diagnosed me with social anxiety disorder, I feel like I can hear every person in the room talking at the same time. And this, I think, was another one of, what was her name? Autistic Drifter. I think this was another one of Autistic Drifter's videos where this came up and I mentioned it. But like they diagnosed me with social anxiety disorder, then they wanted to put me on Paxil. And I've tried different antidepressants over the years because, you know, trauma in life. They're trying to regulate you. And many other people I know who are on the neurodivergent spectrum have had meltdowns and overstimulation, in my opinion, misdiagnosed as solely depression. And I'm like, overstimulation and depression, like an overstimulation shutdown versus a depression symptom, are not the same. And I don't think that people who don't experience that type of overstimulation understand that it's not the same as depression. And I think we all experience some degree of depression, which is why I can separate it. But when they put me on Paxil at the time as a teenager, out of all the medications that I've ever taken, like, that was the worst. And I really think it was the wrong thing for me. And I had so many doctors try to push on me over the years, like, well, Paxil is what is the top prescribed thing for what you're diagnosed with, social anxiety disorder. So I guess my whole point in this is, for me, going to therapy has been a huge help because I've been able to get back in touch with my body and get out of this dissociative modes from CPTSD. But just getting in touch with myself, becoming more authentic, validating myself and my own experience, like, I have the confidence to say, like, I think that was wrong. And I think that the people who diagnosed me at the time with those things did the best with the information that they had. But doctors don't know everything. So there's a lot of interesting concepts there. And I think it wouldn't be wrong for me to say that I think a lot of neurodivergent people have had this experience, that they're invalidated and they're told they're too sensitive. And to be honest, like, I don't know that being too sensitive is wrong or bad. It's just different. And I think we need to give ourselves grace and accept that our brain just work different. Learn to work with it, learn to accept it to the degree that you can. And kind of the same as I've learned in, like, my studies of people that are, you know, dealing with addiction and trying to get out of that, come up with a plan for yourself. When I'm getting overstimulated, these are the steps that I'm going to do. Other people might think it's weird. Y'all don't like, you know, somebody runs off and they go sit in a room with the lights off, don't talk to me. But if you know that's what works for you, what's wrong with that? Why deny yourself to do the thing that helps you to regulate? And I think that idea that that's wrong or being too sensitive is a flaw or wrong, we gotta let that go. So I know this talk was all over the place. As I said, my focus is a little lower than I'd like it to be, but I definitely wanted to get the thoughts out, and I will take some notes and I'll follow up and talk some more about this in the future. But yeah, it's not bad to be too sensitive, and it's not like, what do I want to say? Not that it's not fake, it's not wrong. It's not wrong that we're too sensitive. And in my opinion, I think some of us probably developed this over time as a species, you know? So maybe it's not evident right now in society how that benefits society. Maybe it's something that's, you know, like I said, people don't see the value in it. But I will definitely say that some of us that run better on high stress, especially as I mentioned in some of my previous videos, when crazy stuff happens like this last, you know, pandemic that happened, like, we're some of the calmest people. Like, y'all think we're too sensitive, but when you feel like the whole world is burning down around you and you don't know how to handle it, like, you're the ones coming to us, like, asking us for help. So, don't look at your differences necessarily as flaws. They can have a lot of value in your life and in the value of other people. And as everything, we all have to learn to appreciate the differences that we have. If y'all have any questions, you can put them on my YouTube or my Facebook. As I said, I don't know what the heck's going on with Instagram right now. We'll see if it reposts. I feel like Facebook and Instagram are doing something different with their videos, because I noticed that my reels on Facebook are looking real weird. But thankfully, I did upload them to YouTube. So if anybody else I know is a content creator that's making live streams or doing reels on Facebook, I've noticed they're looking kind of weird. So if you want to back your stuff up, I would definitely recommend downloading it and then uploading it to YouTube. So I hope everybody has a great weekend. I'm not sure when or if I'll be on here again, because I have a lot of stuff going on. My kid is sick again for the third time in 6 weeks. I said to one of my friends last night, who has a child that's well grown and out of the house, I said, it never ends, does it? Like, once you put your children in school and they're surrounded by other kids, it is a germ fest for the next, 13 years? Get ready. So, fortify your immune system, guys, because your children are going to bring that home to you. But I will tell you, the last time she got sick, I did not get sick. So, fingers crossed. But if I do get sick, I promise all my work friends, I'm not bringing it to you guys. I'm going to call off. Be smart. We'll talk about immunity another time and supplements and all of that, but we're not going to get in that discussion today. If there's anything else you guys want to talk about, let me know. I mentioned to some of my friends today that I've had people get kind of snotty with me in the past on social media about what I post. And to be totally frank, I started my social media because I was asked to by my friends and family. They said, we like your recipes, we like your food pictures, we want to see more, we want to know how to make it, you should post your stuff, you should write a book, people want to hear my stories, so that is why I'm making content. And I don't care if only 5 people watch it, I really don't care. I'm not making content to get likes and views, I'm not paying for it. So if there's something that you guys like and you want me to discuss, I'm not going to say 100% that I'm going to have anything to say about it, but I'll think about it, because obviously I like to talk a lot. And I enjoy talking to you guys, and I'm glad that y'all seem to like to listen. So have a great weekend, everybody. Have fun. Take your probiotics. Take care of your immune system. And get some sleep. Bye.